Hello, welcome to YHELPtalk with Morgann. Today we are here with Morgann Noble, intern at AAKOMA Project Inc., discussing BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, mental health. Hi, Morgann.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
We are so happy to have you. So, Morgann, can you please tell us about yourself and your organization?
Of course. So my name is Morgann Noble. I am an intern at the AAKOMA Project. I am also a student at Howard University studying marketing. And the AAKOMA Project was fully founded as a 501c3 mental health nonprofit in late 2018, early 2019, right as the pandemic had started. But it had been our founder, Dr. Alfie's research lab for over 20 years prior to that. And AAKOMA's mission is really remember them helping themselves. We're really just here to help create a community and a space where people feel that they can find the resources and get the tools that they need to help themselves or others. And we're all about helping marginalized groups, specifically because, as we've seen in the mental health space for a really long time, there's a lack of resources specifically geared towards youth and young adults of color. And I should preface by saying, or afterwards, but AAKOMA identifies youth and young adults between the ages of 13 and 29. So for research purposes, that's how we kind of group youth and young adults together. So yeah.
Thank you. So how did you become passionate about mental health advocacy?
So I actually grew up around the mental health space. My mom is a psychologist, and ever since I could probably walk, I have learned about coping skills, dealing with anxiety, things like that from her. And then as I've gotten older, I've been more immersed in her work, kind of just watching her, shadowing her when I could. And when I got to high school, it really kind of started because I had poor experiences with kind of discrimination and other things like that in my high school, and kind of my transition period from middle school to high school, which is a big leap for anyone. And when I was struggling with anxiety and kind of trying to figure out where do I fit, how do I cement my place in this school, I turned to my mom for resources from books that she could give me or other places that she could kind of point me to. And because she works in the mental health space, she had told me about AAKOMA, and I really started to work with them kind of late my freshman year. And then my passion kind of grew from there, kind of based on my own experiences, but then also just being that friend who could give other people tools when I'm at school too, and I see that they're maybe struggling. I'm that person that people could come to kind of look for, well, what can I do for this? Or what can I do for that? And how can I find resources that would best fit me? So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Why should everyone prioritize their mental health?
I can only speak for myself and the people that I've interacted with, but the things that I've been able to do with mental health, whether it be tools I've learned or resources that I've learned about or told other people about, it's really used as preventative measures. So you have them if you're ever in need or in a dire situation later in life or later along the line. So mental health practices, you don't have to actively be struggling with something to know that your mental health is important. And your mental health is a daily thing. It can be a struggle. It can just be something that you want to take care of, because you can't be fully healthy if your mind isn't just as healthy as your physical body is. So it just gets more important as we see kind of numbers about this epidemic amongst youth and young adults, especially talking about I felt depressed because of this, or I struggled during COVID, or I lost a family member and I don't know how to cope. So things really are kind of showing themselves more and more, but it's always been something that's important. So I think it's just something where if you prioritize it early and you prioritize it before you deal with something vast and kind of grave that could really kind of set you off course for a really long time, you help yourself in the long run because you are taking those steps to make sure that you're just as healthy mentally as you are physically.
Absolutely. That balance between mind and body is really important. So why is mental health a stigma in the BIPOC community?
I'm obviously not an expert, but I can just say that I think there are a lot of kind of triggering factors where faith plays a large part and a large portion of the BIPOC AAPI community. So there's a lot of stigma in the faith-based communities and religious backgrounds where they kind of think, oh, if you have any type of mental health struggle, then you're crazy. And there's really no kind of in between where you see a lot of people trying to make that leap and be like, well, no, if you're struggling with this, then maybe we can find ways to help you. So I would say faith is one thing. I think just being in a position where you're already coming from a marginalized group as a person of color or someone from a marginalized background, you don't want to seem like you're even farther apart from your peers who are not of color or not of a marginalized background. So you don't want to add that extra label to yourself, because then it's like, well, what else do I have to kind of set myself apart when I'm already doing so much to try and make myself as close to them as possible? And there's this quote, I forget who said it. It was a Black woman from a few years ago. But one of the things she said is, I'm Black, I'm a woman, I don't need to be crazy too. So it really kind of goes back to what I just said about you already have so many types of identities that you find within yourself. And if you are someone of color or someone from a marginalized background, adding, I try not to say crazy, but adding what people would consider crazy or like out of your mind to that list doesn't help you, or you feel like it doesn't help you. So I think those are really the big ones. And I would also say there's just a lack of communication. And that's not for everyone, but some people do say that being of a family of color or a family like where your parents or grandparents are immigrants, you can't have those conversations because it was completely different for your parents or your grandparents back then. So mental health isn't something that they, I don't want to say understand, but it's maybe not something that they're open to talking about because they have things that they want to address, but maybe you're not seeing eye to eye about what that is. And they may both be mental health struggles, but you kind of come at it from different angles. So that's what I would say.
Right. So what are some challenges that the BIPOC community may face when acquiring mental health services or healthcare services?
I think one that comes to mind is not being fully listened to. We see all the time with Black mothers where they're like experiencing pain or issues after having their children or like while they're raising their children, and their care staff or whoever's helping them through their medical journey as a mother or caregiver is not fully listening to them. So then they don't have procedures that are in place to specifically help them. So people not listening. I would also say that there's just a lack of resources. So AAKOMA really tries to match people of color, people from marginalized backgrounds with someone who is very closely related to or is of that same marginalized or of color background. So you can feel like you can share your experience or whatever it is that you've gone through openly and candidly without having any worry about, well, they may not understand and now I have to add all this background. So there's just a lack of representation, especially in the mental health community, whether it be with therapists, psychiatrists, psychics, whatever it is, or whatever label you have as a mental health professional. But there's just a lack of resources. There's a lack of communication and listening on some caregivers' parts. And then I would just say, again, some people feel like don't have resources, whether that be in your family, your friend group, or professionally. So that's kind of the main issues that I can kind of think of off the top of my head for why.
So do you think more mental health resources should be accessible in the diverse communities?
I definitely do. And then I think one thing I would add to that is there needs to be a push and an encouragement for mental health providers of color to join the force, because we kind of just see mental health now is becoming this like aesthetic and trendy thing that people talk about. And sometimes people don't want to address the kind of nitty gritty of a mental health situation or dealing with a whole mental health journey from beginning to end. And sometimes it's never ending. Sometimes it's a chronic thing that you're just going to deal with, but you find ways to cope better each day. But I think one of the things that really needs to happen is there needs to be a push for resources, especially for people of color, join the force and help. And it's not their job to help other people who look like them. I don't want to say it like that, but I do want to say that we don't really see this push from mental health providers or schools who are trying to build the next group of therapists or build the next group of psychologists. We don't see that push for them to be like, oh, if you are someone of color or you are someone of a marginalized background who'd love to get in the space, we're somewhere where you can kind of get that experience and feel like you are just as much a part of this as your non-marginalized and non-of color peers as well.
So how can someone find a BIPOC therapist or counselor?
So AAKOMA has a program called the Free Therapy Program, and we have resources in all 50 states and then some out-of-country territories as well, where we provide 5 free sessions of mental health therapy to someone who is completely new to therapy. They've never done it before, and they are between the ages of 13 and 29. Or I think it's 13 and 30, one of those. It's on the website. But basically, if you're new to therapy and you are looking to try it out, you can go to our website. And what we do is on our end, we connect you, reach out to a list of therapists that we have, therapists and providers in your area or that are licensed in your area to help you via telehealth. So all the sessions are virtual to kind of help with COVID complications or anything like that. And you can find resources that way and can get connected with a provider where you feel comfortable. There is also, therapy for Black girls, Black men heal. The list is kind of extensive from what I can think about, where we find resources or those other organizations find resources to help put you with a provider who you would feel comfortable talking to and sharing your story with.
So how can we create a safe space for people of color to seek mental health treatment?
I think one of the biggest things that needs to happen is there needs to be a push to, especially with the growing use of social media and with new outlets coming out every day like Threads and Twitter kind of leaving and things like that. One of the things that really needs to happen is we need to make a push to, especially on social media, for mental health to not just be seen as this one box and this thing where it's like, and this is not a knock to anyone, but posting a video of myself crying and then that's kind of all you post, and people are like flooding the comments like, I go through this every day and you're so brave for posting this, but you're not really sharing. Maybe you don't need to share the whole story, but sharing what is it that has kind of led you to this moment? How have you helped yourself up into this moment? And what is about today that is making it a little harder or a little tougher for you to kind of use your coping skills or use the tools that you have? So I think one way is really kind of stop sugarcoating it on social media and really showing the full, and I mean the full and candid story about your mental health journey or whatever it is that you're going through. I also think there needs to be a push just on other platforms, whether it be like news sites or organizations, their websites, kind of pushing that content more and allowing for these other places and less used resources like Facebook, things like that. And algorithms on social media don't push content for social media as much as they would push something about lifestyle, fashion, college. So having something where we talk to people in these higher up positions who help build these algorithms, build these social media platforms, letting them know that this is content that needs to be pushed just as much as you're pushing like the next it girl and her fashion choices every day. And then I'd also say resources like books. Reading didn't go anywhere, but because of social media, it's kind of coming back in full force and people are like, I'm going to go get 20 books today. So having resources at the forefront in bookstores where it's like, this is a BetterHelp guide, or this is how I use these 5 steps on a daily basis to help myself. So books, social media, things like that are really how you can help get people involved and really get people to learn how to help themselves and others.
Okay, and finally, Morgann, how can anyone follow and support you in the AAKOMA project?
So me personally, my name is Morgann with 2 N's, and my social media handles on Instagram are just Morgann Noble, all one word, MorgannNnoble. And then for the AAKOMA project, you can follow AAKOMA on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Threads at AAKOMA Project, AAKOMA PROJECT. all one word. It's just unanimous across all the social media handles. And then there's the website. So there is the project website. And then our founder also has a website called the Dr. Alfie organization, where she does speaking engagements, things like that. And she's always talking about AAKOMA in her talks, on her website, on her social media handles. And then, yeah.
Well, thank you again, Morgan, for your time. And thank you again for tuning in to YHELPtalk. Please go to YHELPnow.com and follow at YHELPnow for more information about mental health and life skills. Bye.